All right, so uh, today we're diving into something pretty big, something we've all been thinking about a lot, I think.
Yeah.
The way artificial intelligence is going to like totally reshape the way we work.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
it's a massive topic, and I know a lot of our listeners, like us, want to really get a grip on what's coming down the line without, getting bogged down in all the technical stuff.
Absolutely.
So we've been doing a lot of digging, and we found some super fascinating research I'm going to break down for you.
Yeah, we've been really looking deep into the work of Kevin Brake, who's been doing some really, really interesting analysis of, what the future job market might look like.
Right.
And one of the things that really stood out to us was this parallel he draws between artisan-crafted goods and things that are made by AI. It's like
That's a really good point.
it's a really cool way to sort of think about the scale of this change.
Huh?
Yeah, and he puts it in a pretty stark way too. He says, quote, "The future of work will be similar to mass-produced products by machines versus handmade products created by artisans. The marketplace will be filled with AI solutions, with a small section of solutions being human-based." Close quote.
Yeah,
Pretty heavy stuff.
it really paints a picture.
So our mission in this deep dive is basically to unpack that statement for you to pull out all the really juicy insights from this research.
Right.
We want to help you understand how AI could ripple out and affect our jobs, the economy.
Yeah.
Everything from the stuff we buy every day to the whole structure of the workforce.
Exactly.
So let's jump right into it, this artisan versus AI product thing. I thought that was such a clever way to think about this.
Yeah.
Like, it really helped me wrap my head around the potential shift that Kevin Brake is talking about.
Yeah, it's super interesting when you really look at them side by side.
Right.
You know how different they are. Like, think about how an artisan makes something, years of skill, this really personal process.
Mm-hmm.
And then compare that to an AI, churning out whatever it makes based on algorithms and mountains of data. It's
Yeah.
like two totally different universes of creation.
And that difference in how things are made
Yeah.
leads to such a different end result too.
Absolutely.
An artisan piece is one of a kind.
Mm-hmm.
There are little imperfections that make it special.
Mm-hmm.
AI is all about consistency, like spitting out identical copies every time.
Right, like a difference between a handmade table and something you'd buy at IKEA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think what that points to is a future where our basic needs, the everyday stuff is probably going to be met by AI,
Mm-hmm.
just super efficiently.
Yeah.
But the stuff that humans make, the value that we bring,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be more about experiences and things that just can't be replicated,
Totally. And think about the emotional connection we have with artisan goods,
Mhm.
They often have stories behind them, cultural significance. They feel like they have history. Whereas AI products, they might be really functional, maybe even innovative, but they lack that human touch, that soul.
Yeah, and that naturally leads to the question of cost and accessibility, right?
Right.
Artisan work takes so much time and skill, it's usually pretty expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But AI, with its mass production, can make things way cheaper, so more people can afford them.
Absolutely. And thinking bigger picture again.
Yeah.
Think about customization.
Okay.
An artisan can personalize stuff to a point, but they can only do so much.
Right.
But an AI with the right data can generate infinite variations in no time.
Right.
Although the research does point out that AI customization can sometimes feel a bit impersonal, Like it's just an algorithm tweaking things based on your input.
Yeah, yeah. And we can't forget the economic side of things.
Right.
Supporting artisans often means supporting local communities, preserving those traditional skills.
Mm-hmm.
But if everything shifts to AI-made stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it raises big questions about what happened to those jobs, how people make a living,
Exactly. And I think what's really telling, when we look at Kevin Brake's analysis, along with this product comparison,
Yeah.
is that most consumers are probably going to go for the cheaper, more accessible AI stuff.
Right.
It just makes sense, Even though a lot of us appreciate the quality and the uniqueness of artisan goods,
Mm-hmm.
the trend is definitely towards the AI stuff.
Hmm.
Artisan goods might end up being more of a luxury or a niche thing.
Yeah, it's almost like Kevin Brake's suggesting that AI is going to become the default for so much of what we use and consume,
Right.
which makes you wonder, as AI gets even smarter,
Mm-hmm.
Could it learn to replicate some of those subtle human qualities that we
Mhm.
associate with craftsmanship?
That's a really interesting point, and the research actually touches on that.
Or does it?
Yeah, as AI evolves, its ability to learn and adapt could actually let it mimic some of the things that we now only see in handcrafted items,
Wow.
which would just further solidify its role in all sorts of markets.
Okay, so that gives us a good sense of how things might change on the product side. Now let's zoom out and look at jobs in general.
Yeah,
Kevin Brake's work has some pretty specific predictions about that, right?
it does. Based on all his research and analysis, we can expect to see some pretty big shifts in different sectors by 2035.
Okay.
For example, manufacturing and assembly could see a huge impact, like potentially around 70% job displacement as automation takes over.
70% in manufacturing.
Yeah.
That's a huge number.
It is a massive change. What are some of the specific manufacturing processes that the research thinks are most likely to be taken over by AI? And are there any limits to how far this automation can go?
That's a great question. I mean, 70% is just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
What about other areas like retail and customer service?
Yeah.
We're already seeing a lot of automation there, right?
Well, retail and customer service are predicted to see like a moderate to high impact, maybe 40 to 50% job displacement as things like self-service kiosks and AI-powered customer support become the norm. Logistics and transportation could also change a lot. We're talking 30 to 80% impact, with some predictions saying that up to 20% of the workforce could be replaced by things like self-driving trucks and delivery robots.
Wow. Those are sectors with tons of jobs.
They are.
Okay, what about like more office-based jobs? Finance and accounting, for example.
Right. Well, in finance and accounting, the research suggests maybe 50% of routine tasks could be automated through AI and algorithms.
Okay.
Interestingly, healthcare is expected to have less direct job replacement, maybe around 20% in terms of AI assistance, because that human element in caregiving is still so important.
Makes sense.
Legal and paralegal work might see a moderate impact, about 40% likely, in things like document review and legal research.
It sounds like some areas are going to be hit harder than others.
Yeah.
What about education and the creative industries? What does the research say about those?
Well, education and training are expected to see minimal direct job replacement, maybe 10 to 20%.
Okay.
But AI will likely play a bigger role in things like creating curriculum and personalizing learning. Interesting. The creative fields are a bit more complicated. They could see a moderate to high impact, anywhere from 30 to 40%, where AI helps create content, to maybe even 30%, where AI is doing most of the creative work. Yeah. Software development might see about 50% of the more basic coding tasks automated.
Right.
Construction and trades are predicted to have a lower direct replacement rate, maybe 10 to 30%, mainly through AI-powered planning and automation tools.
Okay.
And then marketing and advertising might see a moderate 50% impact, with AI generating content and managing campaigns.
So when we look at all those projections together, what's the overall picture for the global workforce by 2035?
Well, the data suggests a pretty big impact globally, with 40 to 70% of middle and low-skilled jobs potentially at risk by 2035.
Wow.
Now, that's a worldwide figure, of course.
Right.
The impact of AI isn't going to be the same everywhere.
Right.
Kevin Brake's research actually goes into some key regional differences that are really important to understand.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of variation depending on a region's economy and how quickly they adopt technology.
Yeah. Exactly. So, for example, in North America, where labor costs are higher and there's a lot of investment in tech, the job displacement could be at the higher end of that range, maybe 50 to 70%.
Wow.
Europe, with its stronger worker protections and maybe a slightly different focus in AI adoption, might see 40 to 60%.
Okay.
Asia, especially places like China, Japan, South Korea, they're leading the way in AI. And they have a lot of government support for robotics and automation.
Right.
They could see a much bigger impact, potentially 60 to 80%.
That makes sense given how much they're pushing for technological advancement.
Right.
What about other parts of the world?
Well, Southeast Asia, with its large workforce and different levels of AI adoption across industries, might see 30 to 50% job displacement.
Okay.
The Middle East and North Africa, where a lot of economies rely on oil and human labor, could see a range of 20 to 40%. Sub-Saharan Africa, with its current infrastructure and the pace of technological adoption there, might experience the least immediate impact, maybe 10 to 30%. And finally, Latin America, with its growing use of AI in areas like finance and logistics, could see job displacement in the 30 to 50% range.
So it's a really mixed bag globally. But the big takeaway is that there's going to be some major job transformation no matter where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And the research also gives us a timeline for when these changes might really start to accelerate.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. The analysis suggests that the pace of job displacement is likely to increase steadily through 2035 as AI gets more sophisticated and companies everywhere start using it more.
Okay, so it's not just the workforce that's going to be affected.
Right.
Kevin Brake's research also looks at how AI might change the way governments work, too.
Absolutely. The research dives into both the internal workings of government and its external roles in governance.
Okay.
So internally, we can expect to see more and more AI being used in areas like public administration, tax collection, social services, procurement, things like that.
Right.
The likelihood of AI being adopted in those areas is predicted to be pretty high, maybe 60 to 80%, because it has the potential to make things more efficient and save money. Even in legal and regulatory services, we might see moderate AI adoption around 55% for tasks like legal research and processing documents.
Yeah, that makes sense for streamlining a lot of those administrative tasks.
Exactly.
What about the more outward-facing parts of government? How will AI affect those?
Well, in terms of external governance, the research suggests AI could have a big impact on law enforcement, potentially leading to more use of things like predictive policing and surveillance tech.
Yeah.
Public policy will probably rely more on AI for analyzing data and making decisions. The military and defense sectors are expected to be major users of AI, especially for autonomous systems and cybersecurity.
Right.
And even in areas like election monitoring, AI could play a growing role in detecting problems and making sure things are fair.
So basically, we're looking at a trend of more and more AI integration across all levels of government.
Very much.
Okay. So with all these changes potentially coming our way, what should we as individuals be thinking about to prepare for this AI-driven future?
Right.
What should our listeners be doing?
Well, the research and a lot of other experts agree that the most important thing is to have a mindset of lifelong learning and adaptability. Investing in upskilling and reskilling, especially in areas related to AI, data science, digital literacy, that's going to be crucial.
Right.
Even developing uniquely human skills that complement AI, like complex problem-solving, critical thinking, creativity, those will become even more valuable.
Yeah. So basically, not being afraid of AI, but learning how to use it to your advantage.
Exactly. And in terms of your career, it's smart to think about maybe moving into sectors that are less likely to be automated and to really work on building your professional network.
Right.
Making sure you're financially secure through saving, investing, maybe even having multiple income streams is another proactive step you can take. And don't forget about those essential soft skills like emotional intelligence and communication. Those are going to be what sets you apart in the future job market.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess staying informed about how AI is shaping society and influencing politics is important too.
Definitely.
As is taking care of your overall well-being as the world of work keeps changing.
Absolutely.
So to sum it all up, AI is about to shake things up big time, both in terms of how we work and how our governments operate.
Yeah.
It's a time of incredible potential, but also some pretty big challenges. And Kevin Brake's research is a really valuable tool for understanding these upcoming changes from, how everyday things are made to the whole global workforce.
Exactly. And for all of you listening out there, it's so important to understand these trends.
Right.
By staying informed and taking those proactive steps we've talked about, you can put yourself in a good position to navigate all this change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's a final thought to leave you with, going back to that comparison Kevin Brake made between artisan and AI-made stuff. In a future where AI is everywhere, what unique human skills and contributions do you think are going to be the most valuable and sought after? What does that mean for your own personal and professional growth moving forward?
That's something to really think about. And if you want to learn more about the impact of AI on work and the economy, there are some great resources out there.
Yep.
Organizations like the Brookings Institution. Their website is brookings.edu. The MIT Technology Review at technologyreview.com. And of course, there are lots of academic research databases you can check out.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this.
Yeah.
Please like this deep dive and leave a comment telling us what you think about the potential impact of AI.
We want to know.
All right. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.